He deserves to be nervous. Not a noble sentiment, but, after all I had been through the past 3 years, a human one. We are here today because of issues raised by Carmen Segarra. She has done... Brown stopped reading from his prepared statement, lifted his head, and looked briefly in my direction. And she is here today, welcome. And she has done a public service in bringing them to light. At the sound of my name, my heart skipped a beat. Time slowed down, and I felt all eyes in the room turn toward me. I was not nervous, quite the contrary. I had deliberately worn a red jacket, the better to stand out in that sea of men wearing dark suits. I sat just a little bit straighter and kept my eyes glued on Dudley. He shifted uncomfortably in his seat. The Federal Reserve is tasked with supervising the nation's largest banks and is our first line of defense against another financial crisis. Yet we have seen time and again the Fed has failed to strike the proper balance when regulating these large firms. The most obvious example is the 2008 financial crisis, from which we are still recovering. Their inability to properly regulate the banks led to an economic catastrophe, intoned Senator Joe Manchin. Coughing and the clicking of cameras occasionally interrupted Senator Manchin's words. Dudley sat silently at the witness table, hands crossed. To his left and right, 2 wooden tables were packed with journalists, furiously tapping away on their laptops. As Senator Warren and I have said, the stakes could not be higher. With the proper supervision, Manchin's voice rose slightly, and his right hand gestured in the air. We might have averted the 2008 crisis that cost so many people on Main Street in America their jobs and wiped out over a decade of economic success. Then, as Senator Warren began her opening statement, Dudley again shifted uncomfortably and, this time, clenched his hands. We need bank regulators who work to protect the American people, not the profits of giant banks, and that is what this hearing is about today, she said. As Dudley began his prepared testimony, I wondered how he would respond to New York Fed officials' allegations of misconduct. A small part of me still could not believe what I had witnessed, recorded, and brought to light. It all felt like a lifetime ago. 3 years before this hearing, the New York Fed had hired me as an expert in legal and compliance to help supervise some of the nation's largest banks. I took the job thinking I would be protecting the safety and soundness of the financial system on behalf of the taxpayers who paid my salary. Before joining the New York Fed, I had been a lawyer deep in the trenches of some of the world's biggest banks. MBNA America Bank, now part of Bank of America, Citigroup, Societe Generale. Many other large banks, JP Morgan Chase, UBS, Barclays, Morgan Stanley, Merrill Lynch, Goldman Sachs, have interviewed and courted me countless times. I had been sent to many places around the globe, responsible for implementing regulations whose impact went far beyond American shores. I worked with many different kinds of people: competent, high-strung, difficult, lazy, friendly, passive-aggressive, clueless, arrogant, forgetful, and too smart for their own good, discouraging many from engaging in foolish and risky behavior, and even managing to stop a few from breaking the law. But nothing I had seen during my decade of legal work had prepared me for what I witnessed in just a few short months at the New York Fed. In those months, I discovered a disorienting world full of hidden clues, where people said one thing but meant another. Beneath the public face of the Fed laid a web of incompetence